Greetings, fellow makers. Welcome down to the shop. I'm Bill.
I'm Britt.
And today we are giving you guys the ultimate rundown on sealing your EVA foam props and costumes.
One of the questions we get the most is, what is the best way to seal my EVA foam armor? I spent the last week testing all of the most popular methods.
Buckle up because we are going over a variety of methods and materials. All of these methods are designed to protect your foam and to prepare it for painting. Whichever sealant method you use will depend greatly on whatever it is you're making, the type of finish you're trying to get, how much time you have, and how much money you have.
Our goal with this video is to give you a rundown on how to use all of these methods so that you can decide what is the best method for your particular project. For a chart comparing all of these particular methods, visit our post on punishprops.com.
Before using a material, make sure you read any instructions that come with that material, especially the safety stuff. All right, here we go. Ethylene vinyl acetate foam is a favorite of ours for crafting costumes. For thicker pieces, we either work in floor mats or purchase rolls of foam online. Thinner pieces of craft foam can be found in craft stores like Joann's or Michael's. EVA foam is lightweight, flexible, and the pieces can be attached together with hot glue, super glue, or contact cement. You can cut and sand designs into the foam and form the flat pieces into curved shapes with a heat gun. We're going to use all of these test pieces to show you different methods on how to finish and paint your creations. The first method is to simply not seal your foam at all. This is especially great if you're low on time or thought ahead to buy foam that is the same or similar color to your final product. For example, my Mass Effect armor used gray floor mats, and anywhere the paint rubbed off, it just looks a little bit gray and weathered, which is totally fine. You can also buy EVA foam floor mats in a variety of colors to start your armor off with the correct color. You should heat seal your foam, no matter what finish you intend to use. This can be as simple as warming up the surface with a heat gun or blowtorch to close off the surface cells. This provides a more smooth surface for whatever finish you plan on using. For painting your foam directly, we recommend using high quality leather paints or any other high quality flexible acrylic paints. Angelus sells really nice flexible acrylic paints that play well with foam. That's how I painted my Mass Effect armor, and it still looks good 4 years later. Brush on a few coats for total coverage, but know that the paint may stay tacky for about a day. In our test pieces, the Angelus leather paint held up the best to being compressed with little or no wrinkles. To create an even more durable finish with paints, you can brush on some contact cement first. This water-based contact cement is a terrible adhesive for foam, but it does a great job of priming your foam surface for paint. Simply brush on one layer of the adhesive, let it dry, and then brush or spray your paint on top using an airbrush. While this is a fast method, the finish can crease and wrinkle a little bit if you abuse it. This is how I finished my Diablo Crusader armor, and the surface finish is nearly invincible. I was able to paint this entire set of armor in just a couple of hours, which made it a perfect solution when your project needs to be done tomorrow. You can see here that one armor part flexed quite a bit, and there are a little bit of wrinkles. This is a small price to pay for such a fast finish. As far as sealing your paint job, Angelus makes their own clear sealants in matte and gloss finishes. Those work really well, but I prefer a rattle can of Varnish, available in most art and craft stores, also in matte and gloss finishes.
You can also just spray paint your foam. This is a quick and easy way to get the appropriate colors on your props and costumes. We like Krylon Fusion spray paints for base colors because they bond to plastics and foam really well and dry faster than most other spray paints. To get a nice application, warm up your can of paint in a bucket of hot water for a good 10 minutes before spraying. If you put on enough layers, the paint can be sanded down and even wet sanded to a really nice finish. It is important to note that many of these spray paints will not flex very well once fully dried, especially if it's an enamel paint. Once you have a couple of good layers sprayed down and dried, they will absolutely crack if flexed too much. This is why I will only use this method if I'm in a time crunch and I know the piece won't flex too much, like this Destiny hand cannon. It was built and painted in just one afternoon before DragonCon.
Latex rubber is one of my favorite methods for sealing foam because it's incredibly flexible and durable. It's what we use to seal our Destiny costumes and our recent Fallout costumes. We travel with them quite a bit, and having pieces that can be squished into our luggage without breaking or creasing is an amazing bonus. The latex we use is Polylatex 60. It comes in a thick paste that can be thinned 50% with distilled water for brushing or spraying. This stuff dries transparent so you can tint it with acrylic paints. This is amazing for laying down your base color. I prefer to brush on a couple of layers to get all the nooks and crannies covered. Then I'll spray on 5 to 7 more layers with my air compressor and a critter gun. Spraying isn't necessary, you could brush on all the layers, but it is faster and it gets rid of any brush marks. And yes, I put on a lot of layers. The thicker your coat of rubber sealant is, the more durable it will be. For added durability, you can brush or spray on a layer of contact cement or spray glue, like Super 77, before adding your latex rubber. Barge contact cement is really great for this. If you brush on some glue, let it dry, then brush on your latex, that rubber will be bonded to the foam until doomsday. One downside of latex is painting it. Adding acrylic paint on top of the rubber technically works, but it doesn't adhere very well and could chip off if the rubber stretches or bends too much. To paint latex really well, you need to use a rubber cement paint. For a look into that process, check out my video on how I painted my Mechanist helmet. Neoprene is similar to latex in that it's an air drying rubber. It can be brushed or sprayed just like the latex. It's also a fantastic option for anyone who has a latex allergy. It's also incredibly flexible and durable. This particular brand comes in a variety of colors and levels of flex, so you can experiment with whatever works best for you. It does crease a little bit when folded, a little bit more so than the latex. Even though it's a rubber, it is a tiny bit sandable, which is amazing if you have a specific finish you're trying to achieve. And speaking of finishes, one of the best features about neoprene is that you can paint acrylic paint right on top of it and it will bond properly. We've only just started getting into neoprene, but I'm excited to experiment with it more.
Using PVA glues like Mod Podge, wood glue, and Flex Bond is a very common way to seal your foam armor or props. It's one of the cheapest options and the materials are available at any craft or hardware store. Plus, they don't have toxic fumes and are cleaned up with water. They all act in a similar manner. Similar to latex rubber, these water-based sealants can be tinted with acrylic paint, but we found they didn't cover with a lot of color. That's fine, since the highlight of these finishes is that they can be sanded and will take acrylic paint or spray paint really well. The best way to apply PVA glue is to brush it on with a normal brush or a sponge brush. No matter what, you're going to get some brush strokes on the finish. Some of these finishes sand better than others, so it's possible to tidy up the surface once you've brushed on several layers and let them dry. In our testing, Mod Podge and Flex Bond have identical applications, but Flex Bond stays tacky longer, which makes it a pain to sand unless you wait a few days. However, the Flex Bond is more flexible than Mod Podge, creating smaller creases when compressed. The wrinkled texture looks like it would be a good way to simulate leather straps. It's fun to stress test materials and find out other ways to use them. The wood glue we used for testing sanded the best of the PVA glues, but started cracking on the crease lines once compressed. The wood glue I used for my Nixia helmet and sword filled in the seams and imperfections in the foam. The glue sanded well, but the foam lost its flexibility and is cracking in high impact areas. All of these PVA glues can be primed to accept paint, then painted however you like. And now, a word from our sponsor.
Hello, my name is the Mechanist and I'd like to tell you about my shiny metal robot armor. This armor, in fact, is not metal. What's that you say? How could this be? That's right, this armor is made from a lightweight, cheap, and durable EVA foam. I've made this amazing contraption using techniques I learned in Bill Duran's book, the Foamsmith series. These incredible tomes will teach you everything you need to know to make armor costumes from cheap EVA foam in no time flat. Pick up your copy at punishprops.com and start making incredible foam masterpieces today!
Plasti Dip is an incredibly common method for sealing your foam prop and costume creations. This is because it's readily available, especially here in the States and hardware stores. It also comes in a variety of colors, which is great for both sealing your foam and applying a base coat of color. You can even get metallic finishes. For example, Britt used gold Plasti Dip on her She-Ra armor. Spray rubbers like Plasti Dip and Plasti Dip conveniently come in an aerosol can and can be applied quickly. Just like with other rubber finishes, you want to put down many layers to get a more even, smooth finish. Also note that it is horribly toxic and should be used outside or in a well-ventilated area wearing an appropriate respirator. One downside to these finishes is that they don't sand very well, so you're kind of stuck with the texture you get out of the can. Another downside to Plasti Dip is that it will crease if the foam is flexed or folded too much. This is why I tend to not use it on armored pieces that I know will get abused. However, I used it on my Lord Shax's helmet and it worked out great. You can also paint acrylics and spray paints right on top of these rubber finishes and they will bond nicely. This Destiny Hunter knife was sealed with black Plasti Dip and then painted with both rattle can paints and brushed on acrylic paints. Both bonded and worked very well. To seal any of these finishes, you can use Varnish, one of my favorites, or something like Future Floor Wax.
If you want to have an extreme amount of control over the texture, you'll want to seal your foam with an epoxy, like Epsilon or XTC 3D. These are both smooth-on epoxies that are self-leveling. This means you'll get a nice smooth finish once it cures. These are a bit more technical to apply, and if you choose to work with them, you'll want to carefully measure by volume or invest in a kitchen scale to weigh the correct ratios of resin to hardener. Also be sure to work in small batches in large, wide containers. This will give you the longest working time possible when brushing on the goo. The resin and hardener are mixed up and brushed on your surfaces, then allowed to cure. Because they are thicker, note that they will fill in any thin details, so you might have to alter the design of your costumes to accommodate that factor. Also be mindful of your brush strokes. On a couple of these pieces, I had areas where I brushed it on a little too thick, and you can see that it didn't self-level quite enough before it cured. Work in a well-ventilated area and wear a respirator to avoid the curing fumes. Make sure to apply an even layer, but not too thick, since the epoxy will slowly start to drip and may create an uneven surface. The epoxy dries clear, but you can add color tints, which helps hide the base foam color and points out any areas that you've missed. 2 layers are usually enough to get a good seal on your foam, but if you want something that's durable and smooth, I would recommend brushing on at least 3 good layers. This is because you can sand these finishes to a shiny, smooth finish, and you'll want some extra material to keep yourself from sanding through to the foam below. You can rescue a lot of the detail by sanding as well. Since this finish is more rigid, you can sand it to a high shine, but be aware that XTC 3D and normal Epsilon, which was used on our Skyrim Draugr armor, are particularly brittle and can crease or crack if bent too much. The Epsilon Pro actually bends quite a bit better without cracking, but it still creases if you abuse it too much. I like the longer working time with Epsilon Pro as well. The faster curing epoxies will start picking up brush strokes once they start to cure. Also note that you need to give these epoxies lots of time to cure, and there's no way to speed up the process. So between waiting for layers to cure and all that sanding you'll end up doing, you're going to need lots of time to seal all of your costumes with this method.
Similar to the epoxies is urethanes. We use Smoothcast 300 for much of our molding and casting, and there's no reason why it shouldn't work as a way to seal foam. It cures really fast and creates a rigid, sandable finish on your foam. It isn't as good at self-leveling the way that the epoxies are, and it doesn't do a great job of covering sharp corners, so be aware of that and consider rounding over your edges before applying this finish. Smoothcast 300 cures white, and tint can be added to alter that color. Just like some of the epoxies though, this stuff is rather brittle. You can sand it and polish it to a lovely shine, but if you bend it too much, it will crack. Aren't there more flexible urethanes? Absolutely. In fact, Smooth-On has a product called Uracoat that's designed to be a flexible rubber coating for things like foam props and costumes. It is incredibly thick, so know that it will totally fill in any small details you have in your foam. You'll also want to give it a long time to fully cure, something like 16 hours, so plan accordingly. Uracoat goes on like honey and covers your foam very well in a super thick layer. You can probably get away with just 1 good layer for your proper costume needs, but 2 layers would make it nearly bulletproof. Just like other urethanes, you can tint it any color of the rainbow. We didn't get to experiment with many tints or pigments, but just applying a tint merely made it a colored transparent finish, and we could still see the foam below. We did try painting some acrylic paints on top of the Uracoat, and I will say it did not bond at all. We were able to scrape it off just with a fingernail. We also tried using rubber cement paint on this urethane, which works really well on the latex, but again, it doesn't bond at all to the urethane. This stuff is invincible. So if you want to know a little bit more about how to color this Uracoat, Smooth On has more details on their website about coloring this stuff.
It's important to keep in mind that you don't have to only use just one of these methods mentioned in the video. Many of them can be combined with one another to achieve a variety of finishes. I recommend getting your hands on as many of these materials as possible and start experimenting. You might just stumble on a method that ends up being your favorite for most of your projects.
So what's our favorite method? Personally, I really like the latex rubber. I especially like that I can tint it whatever base color that I want and that it is very durable and flexible. This is perfect for me because I put my costume through a lot of abuse. I also really like the finish that I got with some of those rubber cement paints on my Mechanist costume. I also want to point out that we've just started playing with that neoprene. It has a lot of the same upsides as latex, and I'm looking forward to experimenting with that some more. I'll probably end up using that on my next big costume build.
For my monk armor, I used Mod Podge to fill in all the seams and sanded the surface smooth. Then I applied Plasti Dip and normal acrylic paints.
Remember that these favorite methods for us are unique to our particular set of circumstances, the time frame that we have, and the budget and tools we have available to us. You may have a completely different set of circumstances for your costume making and therefore may have a completely different favorite method. Again, experimentation is key. Don't be afraid to spend a little time and money experimenting with all of these different methods to find out which one is the best for you. Also know that each of these materials has their own knacks and quirks, and it may take a while to really dial in how to use them to their best potential. The working time, the temperature, the humidity of your working space, and a number of other factors can play a role in how well these finishes work for you.
There are dozens of ways to finish your foam costumes, and we try to cover all of the basics, but there are tons of other things you could try. If you have a favorite method, let us know in the comments. We'll add as much of that information as possible to our chart on punishprops.com so that there is an up-to-date database for all of your foam sealing needs.
Thank you guys so much for checking out our videos. We have an entire playlist devoted to all our videos on working with foam for prop and costume making. Head on over there, check all of them out. They're really great.
New to the channel? Hit that subscribe button. We have new videos out every single week. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time in the shop.
Yay! Well, hello there! My name is the Mechanist, and I have no idea what I'm supposed to say.
Yep.
Hello! Hello, my name is the Mechanist, and I'm not wearing pants.
You can't go any lower.
No.
That's fine.
Am I out of frame?
No.
No?
No.
Hi. Hey.
There you go.
Hello. Oh, hi there. Oh, I didn't see you there. Welcome to my neighborhood. This is my shed. This is where I keep all of my robots. There aren't any robots there right now. They're all out saving the Commonwealth. I think I got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Awesome.